Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Doors of the Universe podcast. I'm glad to be back here with you. It's been a couple weeks since we've had an episode, so I'm glad to be here and glad to be recording today. It is July 14th. We are here to talk about the things that we all love and that we all appreciate. And I think for most of us, the things that we love and appreciate are cryptids, conspiracies, cults, and all things paranormal. But today's episode, we get to take a trip down south. Why are we going south? What is down there? What do we need to talk about that's in the south? Well, in reality, what's not down there? We've already done an episode on the chupacabra, which is definitely a southern anomaly. We also talked about the Georgia Guidestones, which I think was the first episode. When the Georgia Guidestones are no longer with us, they got blown up 1 month after the episode came out. Not saying they're watching, but they're watching. They're always watching. Don't you forget it. We're going to talk about a little swamp monster from South Carolina. Today's episode is on the lizard man of Scape Swamp. This is one, again, I love doing this because I learn about so many fun things that I didn't know about before. Before we get too far, though, I do want to give some credit to the picture that is the background for the video version of this episode. It is off of Unsplash, and the person who took the picture's name is Bryan Goff, Bryangoff. I will include a link to their Unsplash page in the show notes. But let's go ahead and just get into it. This is one that I've been working on for a little while now. It is definitely a piece of South Carolinian, if not Southern in general, folklore. The lizard man of Scape Swamp has also been known as the lizard man of Lee County. It's an entity said to inhabit the swampland of the region. So let's do a little more diving into the history of the lizard man. So this may or may not correlate with the actual lizard man, but this is a story from Creek Native American legend. The Creek were a Native American confederacy forming the largest division of the Muskogean family, primarily in Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. They received their name from the English on account of numerous streams in their country. According to Myths and Tales of the Southeastern Indians by John Reed Swanton in 1929, the Creek encountered a human-sized lizard monster in the area. The following is a reading from the book. Several Indians were out together and formed a hunting camp. A hunter came back one evening and said, "I have found a big bear tree." He told the rest of the hunters, and they said to one another, "Tomorrow morning we will set out, build a fire there, and smoke the she-bear out so we can see her." They slept, and next day started off and came to the place. When they got to where the big tree stood, it looked as if something lived there, and they said to one another, "A bear surely lives here." So they started a fire under it. The smoke filled up the hollow inside, and soon a big lizard came out. The people saw it and ran away. The big lizard jumped down and gave chase. It ran along till it caught one of them and came back with him. It came with him to the big tree and threw him down into it. Then it chased another and did the same to each in turn, overtook, caught, and brought him back. Only one was left. It chased him, and after it had gone a long distance, overtook him and brought him back. When it was coming through a place where the trees were thick, a tiger, or panther, was lying asleep in it. When the big lizard got there with the man, the panther awoke and jumped upon it. The lizard let the man go and jumped upon the panther in turn, and they began to fight. The man saw this, jumped up, and ran away. Of the people who had gone far away from their homes to hunt, only one came back. He told his people how the big lizard had killed all the others. I don't know, every movie I've seen where there's a scenario like this, the one person kills everybody else and then tells the others that this is what happened, some creature or beast. Either way, this is our first reporting from 1929. Not necessarily the lizard man, but a very large lizard that is large enough to take down people and take them back to their home. Definitely an interesting story. So what is this, a cautionary tale or possibly the first sighting of the lizard man? I'll leave that up for you to decide. The first modern reported sighting of the creature was made by George Holloman Jr. in the fall of 1987, so we're hopping ahead about 60 years here. It all started in the fall of 1987 when a man by the name of George Holloman Jr. was riding his bicycle near Scape Swamp, which is close to Bishopville, South Carolina, and about 50 miles east of the state capital of Columbia. George stopped for his smoke break and spotted a most unusual sight, a 7 to 8 foot tall reptilian humanoid that had red glowing eyes. The creature stood there for a spell before heading back into the swamp when a car passed. Whether it's on its hind legs or on all four, I am not wanting to mess with a 7 to 8 foot tall reptilian humanoid. I mean, it's a reptilian humanoid. I'm not wanting to mess with it in general anyway, but especially at that size, which on average, the adult size for an alligator for a female is 8.2 feet, and the average size for a male is 11.2 feet. Still, 7 to 8 feet tall. I am on its hind legs. I'm not messing with it. So that's the first modern day encounter. But the encounter that really put the lizard man on the map happened in June of 1988, when Chris Davis came across the swamp man. Davis said he encountered the creature while driving home from work at 2 a.m. on June 29th, 1988. According to his account, Davis stopped on a road bordering Scape Swamp in order to change a tire which had blown out. When he was finishing up, he reported having heard a thumping noise from behind him and having turned around to see the creature running towards him. Davis said the creature tried to grab at the car and then jumped on its roof as he tried to escape, clinging onto it as Davis swerved from side to side in an effort to throw it off. After he returned home, Davis's side mirror was found to be badly damaged, and scratch marks were found on the car's roof, though there were no other physical evidence of his encounter. In quotes, I looked back and saw something running across the field towards me. It was about 25 yards away, and I saw red glowing eyes. I ran into the car, and as I locked it, the thing grabbed the door handle. I could see him from the neck down, the 3 big fingers, long black nails, and green rough skin. It was strong and angry. I looked in my mirror and saw a blur of green running. I could see his toes, and then he jumped on the roof of my car. I thought I heard a grunt, and then I could see his fingers through the front windshield, where they curled around the roof. I sped up and swerved to shake the creature off. In August of 1988, Davis passed a polygraph test, and the results were shared with the public. Reporter and skeptic Ben Radford speculates that the test was part of a publicity stunt to help garner more media attention and enable the teenager to capitalize on invitations for personal appearances. Quoting Radford, "They made a big deal about how he passed the lie detector test. If Chris Davis genuinely believed that he saw what he said, then he would pass a lie detector. And if he hadn't passed, you can guarantee that we wouldn't have heard about it." The fact that Davis passed a lie detector test and Sheriff Truesdale vouched for him lent credibility to the story. 2 weeks after the Davis sighting, the Sheriff's Department made several plaster casts of what appeared to be 3-toed footprints measuring some 14 inches in length, but decided against sending them to the FBI for further analysis after biologists advised them that they were unclassifiable. According to South Carolina Marine Resource Department spokesperson Johnny Evans, the tracks neither matched nor could be mistaken for the footprints of any recorded animal. Evans also dismissed the possibility that they could have been made by some form of mutated creature. Roughly around the same time the plaster casts were made, on July 14, 1988, the Lee County Sheriff's Office investigated a report of a car damaged overnight while parked at home in the area of Browntown outside Bishopville, South Carolina, on the edges of the Scape swamp. The car reportedly had tooth marks and scratches with hair and muddy footprints left behind. Sheriff Liston Truesdale noted this was the start of various claims that eventually coalesced into a story about a lizard man in the swamp. Coverage by newspapers and media resulted in increased attention to his claims. Local business began selling Lizard Man t-shirts, and the local Chamber of Commerce encouraged the media attention as good for the community. The increase in newspaper and media publicity prompted further reports of sightings, and the area soon became a tourist attraction for visitors and hunters. Local radio station WCOS offered a $1 million reward to anybody who could capture the creature alive. In the same year, on August 5th, Kenneth Orr, an airman stationed at Shaw Air Force Base, filed a police report alleging that he encountered the lizard man on Highway 15, and he had shot and wounded it. He presented several scalps and a small quantity of blood as evidence. Orr recanted this account 2 days later when he was arraigned for unlawfully carrying a pistol and the misdemeanor offense of filing a false police report. According to Orr, he had hoaxed the sighting in order to keep stories about the lizard man in circulation. Reports of the creature gradually declined at the end of the summer. Local law enforcement officials speculated that the sightings were likely to have been a bear. Now, I don't know if you've listened to the UAP episodes I've done yet, but with Kenneth Orr being an airman stationed at Shaw Air Force Base, it usually takes about a 48-hour period before the government has to step in and say, that wasn't true, or are you sure that's what you saw? Do you want to keep your job? But yeah, the 2-day turnaround just seems a little quick. With all the recent UAP hearings and everything, it seems like people are becoming a little more aware that the government's had a few things that they've kept for us for a while. Getting some documents declassified is always nice. But either way, 2 days after the report, he comes back and says, yes, that didn't happen. I was just trying to keep the lizard man in circulation. In 2008, CNN mentioned the lizard man legend and the story about the couple in Bishopville who reported the damage to their vehicle, including the blood traces. According to CNN, the blood traces were subsequently found to be from a domestic dog, though the local sheriff suggested it might have been a coyote or wolf, which is also just tearing up your car and leaving bite marks in it. In 2015, local television station WCIV featured photos and videos claimed to be Lizard Man, allegedly taken by Jim Wilson and other unidentified individuals. This one's a little more fun one. In August 2017, a total solar eclipse carved a path through the entire United States, with the moon placing itself neatly between the sun and the states of Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. In the lead up to this event, the South Carolina Emergency Management Division posted a warning regarding possible paranormal activity potentially occurring. That warning consisted of a map showing 2 South Carolina counties through which the path of the eclipse traveled, noted with images of lizards. Below the map read the following. This historical map is in response to recent media reports about possible paranormal activity associated with the upcoming total eclipse. SCEMD does not know if lizard men become more active during a solar eclipse, but we advise that residents of Lee and Sumter counties should remain ever vigilant. Criticism. So we talked about skeptical investigator Ben Radford earlier. He states that the details of Chris Davis' story do not hold up under scrutiny. Sheriff Truesdale stated that Davis' story never wavered, but Radford writes that isn't true. Over weeks and months and repeated tellings, the details changed many times, from having scales to the creature being packed with mud, how far away Davis was from the creature when he first saw it, and whether or not it attacked the car. Now, let's be fair. This is over a telling of months. I can barely tell you what happened last week, if I'm being honest. I got a lot going on. There's a lot going on in my life. A lot of things happening. A lot of change all the time. You're asking me to retell the same story from a month ago? I don't think anybody's story is going to remain exactly intact the entire time if you're telling a story over and over with... It's the more fine details, it sounds like, are what's being changed. Not the fact that it happened, when it happened, where it happened, but certain finer details. Radford questioned how Davis was able to see details of the lizardman creature at 2 a.m. when there was no lighting nearby in the heavily wooded area, when the moon was not bright. If this was an aggressive creature, why were there no credible sightings? I've seen things at 2 a.m. in my... as most of you know, used to bartend. I'd get off work about 2 or 3 in the morning, and there were some pretty dark sections of road I would drive down. Oh, I also did deliveries at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes. And yeah, sometimes you get on some pretty dark roads, and I've seen, if you got headlights or even in your tail lights, you can get a pretty good visual of something that's in the road, especially if it's 7 to 8 feet tall or right next to your vehicle. This is, I'm always going to stick for the believer as opposed to the critic. It's just the way I am. I want to believe all this stuff is real. I want to have fun. I want to see these things if they're. I don't want to encounter them necessarily, but from a safe distance, yeah, I would like to see these things. According to Radford, the time in Davis' story didn't make sense. If Davis saw the creature in the shadows while he was closing the trunk of his car, Davis still had to get back in the car and take off. Yet Davis claims that the creature was so fast that it caught up to the car when he was doing 40 miles per hour. Reports vary with the source that Davis told the police about the attack 2 or more weeks later. After investigating, Radford states that the polygraph test administered to Davis may have been a publicity stunt by Southern Marketing Inc., a company arranging personal appearances for Davis. Another curious issue was that there are no photographs of the damage to Davis's car, which provides some evidence that something happened. Newspapers' accounts give various descriptions of the damage to the car, and in one local newspaper, Davis is quoted as saying he escaped with no more than a scratch on his fender. Radford states that Davis's report is quite literally incredible, riddled with both implausibilities and impossibilities. It may be sincere or it may be a hoax, but in either event, no hard evidence of the creature has been found. Investigator Alicia Lutz has suggested what Davis saw that night was actually a local butterbean farmer. Local butterbean farmer. I love it. Lucius Elmore, who was guarding his shed that night after recent thefts. One of the podcasts said them dang kids were stealing his ACs. Elmore claimed he heard a car tire blow out and, thinking it was thieves, walked out to the road to confront them. Elmore said when Davis saw him, he screamed and took off. How are you mistaking a butterbean farmer for a 7 to 8 foot tall lizard man? How much are they paying you, Elmore? Professor of Religious Studies Joseph P. Laycock described the media frenzy and subsequent cult appreciation for this and other similar claims as following the predictable chain of events: a strange sighting, media attention, more sightings, followed by visits from curious tourists and monster hunters. Where has the lizard man been showing up in the media? In 2010, the TV program Destination Truth featured the legendary creature. Children's books such as Maniacal Monsters and Bizarre Beasts include the monster in their bestiaries. Linda Godfrey's 2014 book, American Monsters, A History of Monster Lore, Legend, and Sighting in America includes a chapter on the lizard man. And cryptozoologist Lyle Blackburn's 2013 book, Lizard Man, The True Story of the Bishopville Monster, details the entire history of the creature. The lizard man has also appeared on the sci-fi show Fact or Faked in an episode titled Reptile Rampage. The original contemporaneous story ran in more than 100 newspapers across the country. If you find yourself in Bishopville on June 29th of this year, you can take part in the Lizard Man Stomp, an annual celebration of the Lizard Man's legacy, a festival with music, food, activities for kids, and of course, Lizard Man merchandise. Some possible explanations have come up. There have been a lot of theories that have come forth in relation to the identity of lizard men. Theories such as living dinosaurs or even offshoots of evolution in which the reptilian hierarchy continued to evolve along the same path as early primates. At one point in time, reptiles ruled the earth. It is not out of the realm of possibility that the most dominant species on the planet could continue to evolve in small numbers unseen by mankind. I always bring up Titanoboa. I think it was 2009 was when we first discovered that was a thing, which there's an episode on Titanoboa. Or, well, it's not on Titanoboa, it's there's an episode on a really big snake I did. Huge. But we're still finding, even in the 2000s, finding new dinosaurs that we did not know exist prior to now. Which brings us to a hefty 10-foot-long crocodile relative that had a kind of odd way of getting around 120 million years ago in what is now South Korea. The huge beast walked on its two hind legs like a T-Rex, researchers said after analyzing footprints left behind by the reptile. There are no known fossilized bones to the strange crocodile, but dozens of its up to 120 million year old footprints, include one with skin impressions, are preserved in stone. I'm looking up there. For the first time, we have proof that some of the giant crocodiles of the Cretaceous were bipedal and really designed like the carnivorous dinosaurs. Study co-researcher Martin Lockley, professor emeritus of geology at the University of Colorado, Denver, told Live Science. Research found the fossilized footprints ahead of a construction project. Researchers named it the Sashion Jai-Ri track site. The track marks are big, up to 9.5 inches, 24 centimeters long. The researchers said the crocodile also likely had legs about the same height as the human adult legs. Study senior researcher Anthony Romilio, a paleontologist at the University of Queensland, an Australian, said in a statement. Although no reptilian species known to man has shown signs of such advanced evolution, the reptiles are the oldest and most successful group of species on the planet and could hold secrets that have yet to come to light. Well, there you have it. That is everything I have on the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. What do you think? We got some sightings. Seems like the majority of the sightings happened between 1987 and 1990. There are still sightings that are happening, being reported. If you haven't had a chance to see the photos of the lizard man from 2015, I highly recommend checking out one of our social medias where I will be posting some of those pictures today. But yeah, that one is a little questionable, a little sketch, a little looks like something out of a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episode or a smaller version of something in the early Godzilla movies. But either way, what do you think? I think Chris Davis had a legitimate encounter with a cryptid of South Carolina. I don't know. That's all I've got, though. There will be at the end of the show notes, there'll be links to all the sources I went through. Lizard Man is not one that there's a ton of resources on, but there is a decent amount of different sites that have information for the Lizard Man. But either way, thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you walked away learning something new today. Something fun, something enjoyable, something that's not negative. A lot of negativity going on in the world. I'm hoping these episodes bring a little bit of positivity and a little bit of just fun. Just as always, thank you for listening. If you like this episode, tell a friend. That's one of my things that helps this podcast grow most is word of mouth. Letting other people to know that this podcast exists and that it is something that you enjoy and something you think they would enjoy. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell that one cousin at the family get-together that gets it even when the rest of the family might not. I know this community has been something I've enjoyed being a part of for a very long time, from all the way back to listening to Art Bell on the radio up to watching X-Files and just digging more as the internet brought more information forth and we could all be on here and share this information with each other. I love this community and would love to grow it. If you'd like to follow this podcast social media, you can reach it by going to Linktree/DOTU podcast, linktr.ee/DOTU podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to support financially, it is always appreciated. You can become a monthly donor at patreon.com/DOTU podcast. As always, keep an eye to the sky. And if you ever happen to find yourself in South Carolina near the Scape or swamp, and it's late night, you see a pair of red eyes looking back at you in the rearview mirror, it's time to hit the gas. Because that ain't a butterbean farmer. I'll see y'all next time.